this we're talking about the woman healed on the Sabbath. The woman healed on the Sabbath, which is in Luke 13:10, verses 10 through 21. Luke 13:10 through 21. I think we'll just go ahead. We'll go ahead and read through it. Actually, let's just read. Let's read just 10 through 17, and we'll talk about that, and then we'll look at 18 through 21 after. So let's first look at Luke 13:10, and just read all the way down through 17.
All right, Luke chapter 13, verse 10. And he was teaching in one of the congregations on the Sabbath. And see, there was a woman having a weakening spirit for 18 years, and was bent over and was unable to straighten up at all. And Yeshua, seeing her, called her near and said to her, Woman, you are loosened from your weakness. And he laid his hands on her, and immediately she was straightened up and praised Elohim. But the ruler of the congregation, responding, much displeased that you should have healed on the Sabbath, said to the crowd, These are 6 days on which men should work. So come and be healed on them, and not on the Sabbath day. Then the master answered him and said, Hypocrite, does not each one of you on the Sabbath loosen his ox or his donkey from the stall and lead it away to water it? And this one, being a daughter of Abraham, whom Satan has bound, looked for 18 years, should she not be loose from the bonds on the Sabbath? And when he said this, all his opponents were put to shame, and all the crowd rejoiced for all the splendid works being done by him.
All right. Very good. So let's go back up and look at some of these things here. Starting with verse 10, we see, which we oftentimes see, Yeshua teaching in one of the congregations on the Shabbat. It's always been interesting to see how people that say that they are disciples of Yeshua, their life looks so much different. I don't care what tradition has to say about things, but if I find out that there's all of these things that Yeshua does, and I am going to say that I am a disciple of Yeshua, I want to do those things. When we look at, from a cultural standpoint, when we look at someone's disciples, they walked around, they looked like their teacher. They acted like him. They did the things that they did them based on the fact that the teacher did those things. They emulated him in every way. And so when we think about us as disciples of Yeshua, when we look at the things that we see documented him doing, why don't we say, I want to do that too? I mean, many people make the argument, well, he was Jewish and he did Jewish things. Okay, well, then I want want to be Jewish too then. And I want to do Jewish things too then, because why is that not the thing that I'm saying those in mainstream Christianity is what I'm saying, because I don't fit into that category. I look at the things that he did and it makes me want to do those things. But so many people who say that they are a follower of the one in the Bible who's known as the son of Elohim, they look at the things that he did and explain those things away and don't want to do those things.
Mm-hmm. I mean, they say that it's because he lives on Sunday, so because of that.
I mean, I would be able to accept that if I was to see it. The problem is that we aren't taught to look how to look at the Bible. Now, if there was some scriptures in the Old Testament that said one's going to come and he's going to move the Sabbath because of the things that he has done, then now I got something to think about and look towards, and I'll know that at some point it's going to get moved. And then whenever he dies and rises from the dead on the first day, I'm able to say, oh my goodness, that's just like the prophecy that said that it was going to move. But the problem is there's no such thing as that. We don't see anything in the Old Testament that causes us to think that at some point, the day that the first thing that the Most High said was holy was going to be changed or moved. And so we see Yeshua, he observes the Sabbath. He affirms the Sabbath. And so why do we have a whole group of people who say that they are followers of Yeshua, most commonly called Jesus, and they don't want to do the things that he likes to do and observed and affirmed? Good.
I mean, I know a lot of reasonings, but the other one is,
I know, but I don't want to act. I don't want to act like they don't have reasons. Yeah. But what I do want to say is that their reasons aren't good reasons.
I know. Well, here's the other one. So they give him their first, and we give him our last.
That's a reason.
Because the first day,
oh my goodness,
they give them the first.
That's a reason.
And then they do the rest of their work all week.
That's a reason.
And we do all our work all week, and we give them our last.
That's a reason. Now let me say what the problem with that reason is. It's totally made up. Like, I can't make up a criteria in my own mind and say, well, this is why I do it, if the criteria don't originate in the scriptures. I mean, we see kind of what when the leaders of the congregation, the thing that they have to say is that you got all week to do all of your things. But the last day, the Sabbath day, is for the Most High. So he don't even want those. He offers those days to you. And so for man to try to switch it, or their level of righteousness is higher than the Most High's, where he said you could have those days. You can have the first one, and the second one, and the third one, and the fourth one, and the fifth one, and the sixth one, all of them. Just give me the last one. Like, he never said that he wanted the first day. And so people, they do be saying that. But the Most High never said.
I mean, the way the guy said it, it sounded like It was very.
I know, from a logical standpoint, that sounds good.
It was very charismatic.
But the problem is that you've created this criteria that's not a biblical criteria.
It didn't. Yeah.
Like it makes logical sense, but you can't attach it to anything in the scriptures that verify that. That's the problem. Like I could come up with many things that from a logical perspective sound good and right. The problem is that if the Torah is the foundation and there's no thing in the Torah that gives you that, I can't make up a thing and then say this is why I do it when the why can't be found in the Torah. And another thing, if we go over to Deuteronomy, let's go back to Deuteronomy. Because the main problem that we have here is the fact that if we go to Deuteronomy chapter 13 and we look at what this says. Here, let's begin reading on verse 1.
Deuteronomy 13:1. If there arise among you a prophet or a dreamer of dreams, and given thee a sign or a wonder, and the sign or a wonder comes to pass, wherefore he spake unto thee, saying, let us go after other gods, which thou hast not known. I'm sorry, this is a different version. Back in verse 2. And the sign or a wonder shall come true, of which he has spoken to you, saying, let us go after other mighty ones, which you have not known, and serve them. Do not listen to the words of that prophet or that dreamer of dreams, for Yahweh your Elohim is trying you to know whether you love Yahweh your Elohim with all your heart and with all your being.
Okay, stop right there. So the fact that this prophet or this dreamer of dreams, the fact that he has signs and wonders that come true don't matter. It don't matter if he do these miraculous things. It don't matter if he's able to look into the future and tell you what's over there. And what's over there is really the things that he's saying. What matter is if he say, let us go after other mighty ones which you have not known and serve them. When he say that, then you got to kill him. Don't listen to him. It don't matter that he dreamt something and it came to pass. It don't matter that he told you what happens over there in the future and those things really happen. If he's talking to you about things that cause you to go outside of the confines of the Torah, then kill him. It didn't say kill him yet. It says that's going to be later. But it's there. Matter of fact, when you find out, you be the first one to kill him. You be the first one. Soon as hold on, let's go down here and see what it says. Because I don't want to just be making stuff up. Let's go down. Let's go down to start reading at verse 6.
When your brother, your mother, or your son, or your daughter, or the wife of your bosom, or your friend, who is in your own being, entices you secretly, saying, let us go and serve other mighty ones, which you have not known, neither you nor your fathers, of the mighty ones of the people which are all around you, near to you or far off from you, from the end of the earth to the other end of the earth. Do not agree with him or listen to him, nor shall your eye pardon him, nor spare him or conceal him, but you shall certainly kill him. And is the first against him to put him to death, and afterward the hand of all the people.
And 22.
And you shall
10, sorry.
10, yeah. And you shall stone him with stones until he dies, because he sought to entice you away from Yahweh your Elohim, who has brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim, from the house of bondage.
Okay, very good. So there is a very close connection between the things that the Most High calls for his people to be doing in the Most High. If the Most High say that he wants A, B, and C, and then somebody come along and say, you really want E, F, and G, it's different from A, B, and C. So that's pointing you towards other gods, because the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob has a particular set of things that he will have for his people to be doing. And so for somebody to come along and to change the words of the Most High, that person can't be the Messiah. Don't listen to him. Kill him. You'd be the first one to kill him as soon as you hear it and understand it. And so if we say that Yeshua is the instigator of this whole thing, it disqualifies him actually from being Messiah. And so it's interesting, if we go back to Luke, it's interesting that when we see so many times Yeshua, affirming and reconfirming the Sabbath, they don't know any other thing. They got together on Shabbat, and when he's there, he does these miraculous things. Okay. But that's not even what we even talking about over here. Let's go back to Luke 13 and see what happened on the Shabbat at this congregation at the synagogue where Yeshua was. He sees this. It says there was this woman. There was this woman, and the woman had this weakening spirit. She had a spirit of weakness. A spirit that made her weak. Let's look at that word there. Let's look at verse 11. Verse 11, and the word there, weakening.
See, weakening.
So infirmity, that word there. Infirmity, feebleness of body or mind, malady. What's that word? How you say that? Malady?
Yeah,
It can't be malady. Malady. I think it's malady. Look on that. I'm just curious now at this point how to pronounce that word.
I'm pretty sure it's malady.
It sounds like Spanish mal.
That?
Mal, which is unwell.
Why did you put the word?
But the word frailty, disease, sickness, weakness, feebleness, right? And so when we look,
He put it on the Google thing. Malady.
Malady, okay, good. And so when we look at this, the state of this lady, it says that she's bent over, she's unable to stand up straight. She has all of these physical ailments, weaknesses, infirmity, but it said that she has a spirit. She has a weakening spirit on her, which causes this thing. And she's been like this for 18 years. And so we kind of looked at this before, because when we talked about the lady who had the issue of blood for those 12 years, that when she was healed, it was a spirit thing that had her these years. And so we see where over there and over here, where you have spiritual things that's happening on people that have these physical consequences attached to them. Something going on in the spirit from them being afflicted by this spiritual thing, and it literally is affecting them physically. Over to look at let's look at Isaiah, because it talks about the one that will come, who does away with this infirmity. Let's go over to Isaiah 53 and read 4 and 5.
Isaiah 53 and 4. Truly, he has borne our sickness and carried our pains. Yet we reckon him smitten, stricken by Elohim, and afflicted. But he was pierced for our transgressions. He was crushed for our crookedness. The chastisement for our peace was upon him, and by his stripes we are healed.
Okay, so if we look at verse 4, where it says he has borne our sicknesses, that word sicknesses there is the same idea that we see over in the Greek that's giving you infirmity. That word there is koli. The word in verse 4 that says he has borne our sicknesses, that word there is the same thing that we see over there, which is malady, anxiety, calamity, disease, grief, sick, and sickness. Okay, so the Messiah that will come, it talks about the fact that he will in fact alleviate us from those things. It says that he borne our sicknesses, our infirmities, our maladies, right?
We talk about whether this was only after he died or while he walked the earth.
Well, what Yeshua physically does for people, you can look at this verse here in Isaiah 53 verse 4 and talking about an overall picture of what he will do. But he gives you that as he's walking around, because he's literally healing people of their sicknesses. So we see what he does in his fullness, when he goes and he sends back the spirit of holiness. But when we look at Isaiah 53, it's kind of all encompassing, where it deals with what he will do in his fullness, but also when he walks around. Because when we look at verse 5, verse 5, I think takes it all the way out to what he'll do in his fullness, because it literally says that he was pierced for our transgressions, he was crushed for our crookedness or our iniquities. Right, when we talk about transgressions and iniquities, we're going further than what it is that we find with just kind of the sacrificial thing. Like when we talk about dealing with transgressions and iniquities, this is something that we really kind of only see with atonement, where atonement talks about not only dealing with sin and not only dealing with, the things that you're trying to do right and fail, but when we talk about atonement, it talks about cleansing you, atoning you from not only sin where you missed the mark, but transgressions, which is literal rebellion. That word for transgression is literal rebellion. Rebellion and literal iniquities. Right? Which is that continuation of that state of perversion where you're just in a constant state of transgression. That's something that happens, and it's interesting that that's connected with the Day of Atonement, because it's something that really only dealt with when the high priest goes through that process. It sets it above kind of the normal things that happens inside of your regular quote unquote sacrifices that you bring for sin and all of the things, which again points us towards Messiah. When we see the thing that the high priest is able to do for us once a year within the Torah, it points us to Messiah, where it's kind of over and above kind of the natural, regular thing. And so when we look over here in Isaiah, where we see this one will come who does away with our sicknesses and also does this thing that usually the high priest is only able to do once a year, we see that it helps us to look for this greater one who does these greater things for us. And so if we go back over to Luke, again, thinking of this woman who had this weakening spirit. She had this weakening spirit. She had a demon on her that had been causing her infirmity for 18 years. And then here comes Messiah. Here comes Yeshua, where it says that he saw her. Read verses 12 and 13 again over there in Luke 13.
And Yeshua, seeing her, called her near and said to her, "Woman, you are loosened from your weakness." And he laid his hands on her, and immediately she was straightened up to praise Elohim.
Okay, very good. So he's in the place. He's teaching the people, and he notices her, and he sees her, and he had compassion on her. And after seeing her, he calls out to her, "Come, woman." He called for her, woman, come here. And he heals her. Like, she's not even like crying out saying, "Oh, my body, I'm so messed up." He looks at her and sees her where she is, and he calls her and frees her from her bondage through compassion. And so again, when we look at Yeshua, when we look at what it is that he makes available for his people, if we think back to what that said over in Isaiah 53, the fact that he will in fact deal with our sicknesses, but then the way that he does it here is casting out the spirit that's in her. And so again, this spiritual thing that's happening inside of her, and it's been happening for the last 18 years, this spiritual thing that's got these physical consequences. But he's able to free her through, the releasing of his bondage upon her. Let's go over to Colossians. I want to look at Colossians because again, thinking about what we talked about back in the Torah portion with Yaakov, where it talked about his spirit being revived, like him being made alive because of something that he became aware of. Something that he became aware of literally changed his countenance. Something happened on the inside of him that changed him. Let's look at Colossians 1 and read verses 9 through 14.
Colossians 1 and 9. This also why we, from the day we heard, have not ceased praying for you and asking that you be filled with the knowledge of his desire in all wisdom and spiritual understanding, to walk worthily of the master, pleasing all, bearing fruit in every good work, and increasing in the knowledge of Elohim, being empowered with all power according to the might of his esteem, for all endurance and patience with joy, giving thanks to the Father who has made us fit to share in the inheritance of the set-apart ones in light, who has delivered us from the authority of darkness and transferred us into the reign of the Son of his love, in whom we have redemption through his blood, forgiveness of sins.
Okay, very good. So Paul is saying some interesting things, and I'm saying that these things that he's saying is relevant because, if we look at this, he's talking about the fact that he don't stop praying for these people and asking for them to be filled with the knowledge of his desire in all wisdom and spiritual understanding. He's praying without ceasing for these people to be filled with something. And then the thing that they're filled with to cause them to walk in a certain way. That certain way being worthily of the master. And that thing that he's praying for them to be filled with is going to bear fruit. And that thing also brings about an increasing of the knowledge of Elohim. He's talking about the Ruach HaKodesh in those people. He's describing the new covenant. He's talking about this same thing empowers them with all power. He's talking about the new covenant. Giving thanks. Here, let's read again 13, verse 13.
13. Who has delivered us from the authority of darkness and transferred us into the reign of the Son of his love.
The new covenant, the Spirit of the Most High in you, the thing that Yeshua came to do. He walked around the earth and he did these things that exemplify what was going to be the case after the fact. He did the things and then he goes away and sends back the Spirit for his people to be able to do the things and live a particular way as a result of it. This new covenant that's going to have him, this filling of knowledge, of the knowledge of his desire in all wisdom and spiritual understanding. The Spirit in you that causes you to walk in his ways, the spirit in you that caused you to bear forth fruit of the character of the Most High in you, he said, who has already, past tense, delivered you from the authority of darkness. That's the part right there. Who has delivered us, has already delivered us from the authority of darkness. He prayed for those people because he wanted them to come to the understanding of something that Messiah, through faith, already did for them. He delivered them from that authority, that one who used to have authority over them, and transferred them into the kingdom of the Son of his love. And so Yeshua, when he walked around, he's doing these things, but he's doing these things showing the people what was to come. Like, the thing that he first says to anybody, anywhere, in Isaiah 61, loosing, binding up those that was broken. And so this lady who had this spirit of weakness on her, which was a demon, he comes and releases her from that. And then she's healed. And so when we think about this, what's going on again, what's happening in her is this spiritual thing is going on inside of her, and it's affecting her mind, and it's affecting her body. So the Spirit of the Most High causes us to think in a different way that causes us to behave and actually be in a different way. If we look over at, let me see what that is. Look at Romans 12 and 2. Read that for us.
Romans 12 and 2. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, so that you prove what is that good and well-pleasing and perfect desire of Elohim.
He said, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Something got to happen inside of your mind so that you could be transformed. Now, he just did an instant thing with the lady. He goes in there with the lady. She's bound up with this spirit, and he pulls that thing away, and her mind is instantly transformed, and that thing is gone. And she's made new. Kind of like what we see pictured for us with Yaakov when he got the knowledge of his son being alive. His mind was literally transformed and he was made new. Mm-hmm. What's this word here in the Greek? The renewing word. Renovation, renewing. What's the word study on that? Renew qualitatively, renewing, renovation, which makes a person different than in the past. Interesting. That's interesting. Go over to Romans 8. Go over to Romans 8. Romans 8. Let's see what verse is it. Is it 4? Oh, it's 5 and 6. Read Romans 8, 5 and 6.
For all those who live according to the flesh set their minds on the matters of the flesh, but those who live according to the Spirit, the matters of the Spirit. For the mind is of the flesh is death, but the mind of the Spirit is life and peace.
When your mind is ruled by your flesh, that equals death. But when your mind is ruled by the Spirit, that equals life and peace. Which is interesting because it's not just about the fact of, everlasting life. But peace, though, right now you're at peace because of what your mind is aligned with. Is it aligned with the Spirit of the Most High, or is it aligned with carnality, your body? What's the thing that's motivating it? This lady, she probably has some terrible thoughts in her mind about herself and things in life because of this. Like, what's going on with this spirit in her that's causing her body to be affected by it? Like, there's something that must have been happening inside of this lady because of this spiritual oppression that she was going through, that had physical consequences attached to it. Yeshua comes and he frees her from this. But when we look at what Paul has to say to the people, they who were, this was an assembly. This was a place of professed believers in Messiah, but within them, it was necessary for them to be thinking about things differently so that they were able to walk in all power and in all understanding. So there was something that wasn't being realized in their minds. He had to remind them that they already was delivered from an authority that had dominion over them. That they already had been transferred over to the kingdom of the Son of His love. But they wasn't thinking about it right.
I think they just simply didn't believe it. I feel like you gotta believe it. Once you believe it, you walk different.
Okay.
Just one angle.
I think it's the only angle. I think that is the proof of what it is that you believe, that you're walking in it. Either you know who's your boss or you don't. Who got authority over you? Your body? This authority of darkness, does that have authority over you? Or does Yeshua HaMashiach have authority over you? If he got authority over you, he just spoke to the things that was in this lady in the innermost parts. He's talking to this spirit that's within her. Mm-hmm. But the spirit that's within her is talking to her mind. So he frees the grips of this wicked forces that speak to her mind, and now she got something else that's ruling her mind, which frees her.
I look at it like a parasite. Like you got spiritual parasites, and if it's
yes,
because it's proven, like even when you got parasites in your body, they make you have cravings for things.
It works with your mind. That's so crazy.
And it makes you think that you want this thing
In your mind.
But when you get rid of it, you don't got no cravings no more.
That's so crazy. That's so
It's a
crazy.
real thing. Yeah. So you got rid of that spiritual parasite.
But it's what Paul's saying over here. If your mind is according to your flesh, it only can lead to death.
Yep.
But if your mind is according to the spirit, it leads to life and peace. And so he come in there, Yeshua does, and say, "Woman, thou art loosed."
That's true. Cause these thoughts and these spirits capture people. They can't see past it. It change your attitude. It mess with your health.
All that.
All of that.
And this thing that's, but the thing that I want to focus on is the fact that this spirit thing that's happening in these parts of you that you can't see, the part that you can fathom is in your mind.
Yeah.
And so what is it that's ruling your mind? Is it your body or is it Messiah?
Yeah.
Messiah goes in there and switches the focus. He sees her and he causes her to switch her focus to him. And then he speaks to her and then it's done. And so he makes a connection to her and she connects to him. And then he healed and then she's healed. But I want to keep on going and looking at this because we got these people in there and they like, hold on, man, you can't be up in here healing people
Naysayers.
on the Sabbath. Like you got 6 days where you could sit up here and do that. But you want to sit up here and try to mess and do this on the Shabbat. And Yeshua's like, man, y'all some hypocrites. Because first of all, when you think about, what it talks about for us in Leviticus chapter 9, and we don't got to look at the whole thing, but a good part of Leviticus chapter 9 deals with how we are to deal with one another. Not to oppress one another. We're sitting there looking at this book that's, it's kind of life changing, this book that we're talking about, but dealing with oppression. Different ways that one is oppressed and can't even be an oppressor. But in the Torah, it's telling us don't oppress your neighbor. Don't curse those that are deaf and that are blind. Kids are so mean. When we were kids, we used to tease people that had like mental things going on and it's terrible that kids do those kinds of things. But the Torah got to teach us about these things that we'll naturally just do.
Yep.
But in Leviticus chapter 9, it got to tell you to have right judgments. It has to tell you not to be out here evil tonguing people. It has to tell you not to hate people in your heart. And to love as yourself. It talks about all of those things in Leviticus chapter 9. But Yeshua, when he's talking to these people and calling them hypocrites, if these people care so much for this lady who was part of their thing, why wouldn't they have dealt with the lady before? Yeshua comes to Caesar and deals with her right when he sees her. But if she was somebody who was there all the time and they had every opportunity to do whatever it was that maybe they could have done, they had every opportunity to have done that. And then now they want to sit up here and say, well, talk to Yeshua about what he did. They could have just said that to themselves. Like, why is she like this why did we leave her like this?
For so long, 18 years.
If there was something to even be done. Like the way they're talking about it is as if it actually could have happened, but just some other time. But if that's the case, why they ain't do it?
It seemed like too they might have had a perspective like he was doing business. We know he was about his father's business.
Yeah.
But their perspective, they probably got some shekels off of doing, I'm like just thinking like, why? How could they really be upset over this? What he's doing?
Because they were some hypocrites.
Like, what kind of work did he do? He put his, he did that and rebuked the thing, and you going, what you working and. They would have expected some shekels if they did that. I think that's why they was like that.
I mean, like that. It's not like he went out and dug a ditch and then got something from the ground and brought it back.
Yeah, all he did was this.
Yeah.
But the thing is that Yeshua's rebuke to them is interesting because read verse 15. Excuse me, verse 15 again. There.
Then the master answered him and said, "Hypocrite, does not each one of you on the Sabbath loosen his ox or his donkey from the stall and lead it to the water?"
It's interesting that Yeshua goes there because when you look at the customs of the people of the time, they had all of these laws and things regarding, classifications for what was working and what wasn't. There's a certain way that you can make a knot that was work, but there's a certain knot, like if you could make a knot with one hand, that wasn't work. Like if it took two hands, that was work. But if you could make a knot with one hand, it wasn't work. And so there was a thing that they kind of did for their animals, because you can't be out here working on Shabbat.
Oh wait, so maybe if they took.
There was a thing that they did for their animals, a way that they could have them so that they would be able to go and get water. They cared so much for them, but they knew they couldn't do no work to give them water. But they did their thing that they made possible to say that they wasn't breaking the law, so that their animals can be watered without technically working. And so they went that extra mile to do these things for their animals, but they didn't do that same thing for the daughter of Abraham. Mm-hmm. And so that's why Yeshua's over here chastising these people back, calling them hypocrites, because they cared more for their animals than the daughter of Abraham, who was literally bound by Satan for 18 years.
Because that's work. I'm just going to verse 15, talking about what he's doing to the ox and the donkey. Yeah, that's not his work.
There's a way that there was almost like a loophole. Like if we do it in this way, we're not working, but you're literally unloosening and leading your thing to water when, based on the laws that they made up, what if they did it a certain way is work, but if they did it another way, it isn't. But what I'm saying is that they deal with these loopholes and go this extra mile for their animals, but not for like a literal human being that's sitting there that's in need.
So was he saying that what they was doing was work anyway?
He's saying that, well, it's all based on traditions, but what he's saying that they are caring more for their animals than they are for human beings.
Got it.
So similar to before he was talking about you care more about tithing herbs than taking care of your elderly people. It's like there's a love loss that has happened with the people when they forget about what the actual Torah is about in the first place, and they turned it into kind of this mechanical thing that's dead and not alive.
Right.
As a word, they're so paying all this attention to all of these things and not doing this and not doing that. Meanwhile, this lady's over here messed up for 18 years and they not worrying about that, but they worrying about their animals getting water. Because at the end of the day, your animal getting water is about you.
Making sure you live.
That's you securing your things so that you're able to. It's selfishness.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because as long as you got your donkey that's gonna do your work and all of that stuff for you, it's all so it really is not about the animal, it's about their own self. It's selfishness. Like, I'm gonna make sure that I'm gonna be able to get mines. So I gotta make sure my animals, they don't die so that I can continue to get mines. But meanwhile, this lady is sitting right over here. And so when Yeshua brings all this out, you know, the crowd, the people, you know, he brings, it says his opponents, they was put to shame as he reveals this thing, and they was able to see and rejoice because of all the things that Yeshua has done over here, because he brings to light this whole revelation of, you know, what it really means, you know, to observe this is a Shabbat message over here on Shabbat, where these people really aren't honoring and respecting the day for what it was created to be. Loving the Most High, loving your neighbor. They didn't have no love for their neighbor, and they really didn't have no love for the Most High, because when you look at what it is that Yeshua brings out, is the fact that they really were looking at themselves more so than even the Most High.
I just can't believe that they would criticize him for helping someone who was in that situation for 18 years.
I mean, but it just reveals that their hearts weren't in it. It didn't have nothing to do with their heart at all. Because if it did, they'd be happy.
Oh wow!
They should have been happy for the lady.
Clapping and everything.
Exactly.
Like, why was they not happy that the fact that she was bound and now she was made loose? They hated the lady, obviously.
Yeah, yep.
They didn't care for her one bit.
Yep.
Because if they knew that she was whatever she was. There's people that was probably there less than 18 years and only knew her like to be like that. And for them to do anything other than to rejoice as a result of her being freed just shows that they actually, in fact, hated the lady.
And also, too, it said that it was a ruler of the congregation. People in positions, like if the spotlight ain't on them, a lot of times, you know, they're like, wait a minute. You know, it's that aspect of power and, you know, that pridefulness, yeah.
And something that's interesting, you know, you bring that part up about the ruler of the thing. Some of the writers of the time talk about the fact that it is mentioning a one ruler, but typically these synagogues didn't have a one ruler situation. It typically was like a collective kind of a thing, which I think even makes it worse, because in the text it kind of make it seem like it's a individual, but it probably was multiple ones. It's more likely to have been the thought of the rulers as a collective, which makes it even worse. Because nobody was able to stand up for the lady until Yeshua comes with the chastisement. But the one thing that I kind of just wanted to just kind of gain from all of that is the fact that, you know, we have to be able to remember and keep our focus on the master and see what it really means to be spiritually minded. Are we walking around here with things on us simply because we're not focused enough on the master? Because these things that we see him loosing these people from, yes, it's this spiritual bondage that's going on, but these spiritual things got physical implications.
Yep.
And so if we can focus more on the spirit, maybe our bodies can be better as a result. Because if we're focused more on the flesh, more on carnality, it's proven that your body can be worse. So why isn't the opposite the case? I'm saying that the opposite absolutely must be the case.
That's right.
I mean, you can really have physical things going on with you, but it's also true that you could really have physical things going on with you based on something that's going on at the very depths of who you are.
That's what it is.
Okay, let's look at these last 4 verses here before we end, because we can add that to the situation. Read verse for us, 18 through 21.
Therefore he said, therefore he said, what is the reign of Elohim like, and what shall I compare it? It is like a mustard seed, which a man took and threw into his garden, and it grew and became a large tree, and the birds of the heavens nested in its branches. And again he said, to what shall I compare the reign of Elohim? It is like leaven, which a woman took and hid in 3 measures of flour until it was all leavened.
Okay, very good. So it's interesting that when we look at this here in verse 18, we have the thing that happened with the lady and the healing and all of that. And then in verse 18 it say, therefore he said. Like it's some kind of connection between what he getting ready to say and what just happened. When you think about this whole mustard seed and leaven thing, I'm not sure exactly how those things is related to one another, because it seemed like he switched up. But in 18 it says, therefore he said. So what does these things that he said over here got to do with what was over there? When he's talking about this reign of Elohim, this kingdom of Elohim, what is it like? What is it that I'm able to compare the kingdom of Elohim to? He said, it's like this mustard seed. This mustard seed is a little tiny thing. It's this little tiny thing, is this mustard seed. But this little tiny thing, this little tiny seed, when it's taken and it's put in the garden and then it grows, it could become this big, large tree. And so I think that the key here point is the fact that you can have this potential, but until the potential is actually realized, it's not worth anything. When you just got the little seed, it's nothing.
You lose that mustard seed.
That thing, if you dropped it on the floor, you wouldn't be able to find it.
That's right.
But when the man takes the seed and he puts the thing in his garden, and then the thing grows and becomes a large tree, it said the birds of the heavens nested in its branches. It became a place for birds to come and live and strive. But it had to be planted in the ground, and it had to actually grow. And so when we think about this with the lady and the place, she really was like, I would say she was like the seed. She's kind of like the seed. She had all of this potential. She was there hearing truth. But she wasn't really a doer. And maybe the people that was the givers of truth, maybe they wasn't doers either. Maybe there wasn't a whole lot of doing going on in this particular place. There was just a lot of hearing. There was many seeds maybe in this place, but there wasn't too much planting. And there definitely wasn't no trees growing. And so you got to have a situation where this potential that exists got to be realized. Mm-hmm. When we think about, even if we think about what it was that Paul was saying to the congregation in Colossians, they had the template. They had the template available to them, but there wasn't no faith attached to it. And so therefore it became necessary for them to be reminded, oh yeah, those things don't got power over you anymore. Just like this lady had to be reminded, those things don't got power over you anymore.
Mm-hmm. Oh, look, this is perfect for when we just came out of in Genesis. Joseph was the seed. They literally threw him in the ground. Came out and was big tree and come on his branches in motion. You know what I mean?
Yes.
That's funny.
Big ration right there.
Yes,
Oh,
exactly.
God.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And but the potential
Right.
got to be realized.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
And
God.
once it is, mighty things can happen.
Oh, yeah.
It's interesting that it talks about the birds of the heavens nesting in its branches. This is obviously about protection and a place of nourishment. Mm-hmm. Other places we see where it talks about the birds coming and taking away the seeds. It's talking about the birds of the heavens kind of in a negative sense. But this ain't that. This is talking about a place that becomes a home and a place where life exists and sustenance and protection. This is what this is talking about here, based on the realized potential. And the same thing is true when you look at the leaven. Because leaven, he just got finished talking about leaven in the negative sense. Right? A little leaven leavens the whole lump. The leaven of the Pharisees, he's talking about this thing in a negative sense. But here, he's talking about what is the kingdom of Elohim like. It's like this leaven. But not just a leaven that's just off by itself, but the leaven that's hid inside the flour. Until it gets to the place where the whole thing has been leavened. And so this activator has to be mingled with these other parts so that it can grow and spread and affect things. But that's what the kingdom of Elohim is like. You can have this knowledge of this good news, this gospel, this knowledge of Messiah, this knowledge of Yeshua. But that knowledge of Yeshua got to be the seed that's planted and grows and becomes a place of flourishing. That knowledge of Messiah, of the good news of the gospel of Yeshua, has to be like a leaven that you actually go and take and put in flour. It has to be used and activated so that it can actually do what it's supposed to be doing. So I'm just going to close with the idea that, we have to allow for the potential that exists within us from Messiah in us. We have to allow for that potential to be realized in order to be able to meet the actual goal and purpose that is sent in us to even do. Because if we say that, Yeshua, the way this is, Yeshua really caused us to be leaven, so that we could go into the flour and cause this flour to be leavened.
That's right.
He literally caused for us to be a seed, so that we could go into some earth and grow into a tree and produce fruit. And so we have to get to the place of allowing for the purpose that the Most High has for us to be realized and activate the kingdom of Elohim.
Yes.
What was you going to say?
I just want to say, I just want to say that, like, in our spice cabinet, we have some mustard seeds, and it just is sitting there, and it just sits shelf life. I don't even know how long, and it just sits there forever, And the same thing with some. I know they didn't have like yeast, dry yeast, but the same thing in our cabinet. We have yeast, and it just sits there. You know what I mean? And it's just like there's no activation.
It don't do nothing unless you put it in some. Unless you put it in the little. You gotta put sugar in it.
You can just put some water in it.
Or you just put it in the water, just make it wet and mix it up.
Make it wet, yeah.
But
it's
you gotta activate it.
You gotta do something with it. Yeah.
It don't just sit there and grow inside the package.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it don't. And I think about the even talking about what we just were saying with Yeshua and what with I keep looking at that.
Joseph. Hey, that's his name. And he had a dream, didn't he? He told y'all his name.
With Joseph, if his brothers, if all he had was his dreams, and he was just talking about them, and there was no activation.
He had to be put in the ground.
He had to be put into.
Actually, had to be taken.
Even though he had to be put into that rock, into that
tomb that he made,
right? Yeah. And it's like you gotta have like people. Sometimes people just if everything is handed to them their whole life, they never get any. They don't get any sort of testing or trying. They don't become activated into the greatness that they could potentially be, And so I think that we gotta look at that lady and just see it took her 18 years to get to her potential, but I don't know why it was just enough, but it's just this is an awesome lesson. Is all I'm gonna say.
All right. Okay, so I think for now, that's all we're going to say for now. Y'all willing, we'll be back on next Shabbat to continue with our look at not only the annual Torah portion, but also the words of the Master. So we'll say for now, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.